Cool. Yeah, David, I know we got a few people who aren't here. I know that said they would be here. So I'm quite sure people probably just chime in a little late, what have you, but.
Well, the good thing is we'll have the recording and I'm always available. One of the things I encourage for folks that are interested in coaching is to set up a free consultation. Let's talk about it and understand where you are. And if it makes sense, potentially moving forward, we can have that discussion, but no obligation, but it's always good to kind of understand your perspective and where you are. That's what I offer with my practice.
Yeah, man. Well, Sonia, let's go ahead and get with David. You are around to understand and leverage the importance of leadership and coaching because, he is an expert in this space, a good brother, good leader. And again, man, congratulations, man. Our prayers go out to you. You're cancer-free now. So we love hearing that today. And I know I'm quite sure everybody else loves hearing that as well. And we all had our challenges. So
thank you, brother.
Man, we're happy for you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We'll get started. Today we have our speaker, Mr. David Albritton. David is the founder and CEO of the executive coaching and consulting firm 1988 Strategies, which is based in the Washington, D.C. metro area. He is an International Coaching Federation certified executive coach, as well as a recognized business leader, public company board director, public speaker, and public relations communications expert. David, you can go ahead and get started. We appreciate you being here this evening.
Great. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Appreciate everybody being here. It's nice to meet everybody through this screen. That's the way the norm is these days. In fact, in my coaching business, almost all of my coaching is done through this black screen in front of me. So
I know, right?
That is the new way of the world. But tonight, just wanted to kind of spend some time talking about coaching and understanding and leveraging the importance of it and how it can potentially help drive your future focus in your career, not only from a corporate perspective, but also a small business as well. And we'll go into this a lot deeper, but as I guess a preamble, many times we are unaware of areas where we're stuck, or we're just not willing to have those conversations with ourselves or uncover those blind spots or those things that may be getting in our way. And that's the beauty of coaching, if you allow yourself to be open to it. So we're going to talk about that tonight. I've given this presentation many ways, many times, and given what I thought was going to be in this audience, I took out a lot of slides from what I normally give because I really wanted to dive into a dialogue. So I'm going to get through the slides. There's 17 of them to get through. And then I'd love to just open it up for Q&A and just answer your questions. And so I'd like, as you kind of think about what I'm talking about through here, if you can jot down some notes and if you've got some questions, I'd be happy to talk about them with you, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. As the introduction said, that's me and my former life over to the left. I started off in the U.S. Navy after graduating U.S. Naval Academy in 1988, which is the significance of my firm. I've gotten accredited as an executive coach. I went to Georgetown University and finished up and got certified. But, as far as my corporate career, I'm not going to bore you with all the different details. I have served at senior levels. I was the president of General Motors Defense, so that's GM's aerospace and defense business. I currently serve on a publicly traded company board of directors. Embecta is a diabetes care business that spun off from Becton Dickinson last year. And most of my career for about 25 years was spent in corporate communications. And so, but there's a lot of other jobs in there in between. I think what I want you to walk away with from this slide is not so much that this guy had 1,500 jobs, was the fact that a lot of my career was predicated on the fact that stuff changed. Stuff that I could not control actually changed my world and forced me to make a different decision and have a different outcome. As a company decided to acquire another company. I mean, I've been acquired twice and spun off once in my career. None of those decisions could I change or impact at all. And it forced the trajectory of my career to change dramatically. And then, on a personal side, you just never know what is going to happen to you and people you love. And so I know in March of 2021, my oldest daughter got diagnosed with a form of leukemia. She's in remission now, but in March of 2021 through probably May, who knew what was going to go on with her? And literally, I had just gotten Amazon Web Services as VP of Communications about 3 months before that, and I actually chose to resign just so I could focus on the family. And so all of that to say, you go through these trials and tribulations in your life, and as much as we try to, leverage the closest people around us, et cetera, there are many times as we try to work through these things, talking to somebody else could be helpful in us thinking about a path forward. And we're going to talk about, a coach versus some, other types of consultants, and counselors and those types of things and mentors. But from a coaching perspective, it's always good to have perspective. Okay. So today's outcomes, what we want is just to really learn why organizations are using coaching to strengthen capabilities of their employees. Understand the difference between a coach, a mentor, and a sponsor, and a counselor. Those terms get tossed around a lot independently. And a lot of people, even myself, before I actually dove into coaching, used to confuse some of those terms. And we're going to go through some definitions and some explanations. I want to understand the topics that people actually think about as relates to coaching as well. And then I want you to become familiar with the essential, career competencies that are needed for growth. It's been established by external organizations. Okay. This is really designed for you to take control of your future. And again, this can be in the corporate context. This could be as a small business owner, entrepreneur, et cetera, et cetera. We all can use some additional help, guidance, support, thinking about how, to create successful pathways going forward. And this presentation is designed to kind of cover that. So the first question is, what is a coach? Okay. A coach is truly designed to be a thought partner. Okay. Somebody that's really there to help hold you accountable and to really dive into here and here, head and heart, in ways that you probably otherwise don't know to even ask yourself some of these questions. We've all been very successful in our careers, in our lives, hopefully. And, we've had tremendous opportunities thrown at us. But if we look back in retrospect and, some of those opportunities that maybe came our way that we didn't recognize as opportunities at the time, we chose to go left, we could have gone right and had a different outcome. It was based on our context at the time. It was really based on our mindset. It was really based on what we thought was the right path without having a lot of in-depth knowledge, or not maybe looking at it strategically in the way that we could have, just because we were limited at the time in how we thought, what we thought, who we reached out to for help and support, and those types of things. And so as you think about going forward, a coach is really looking forward. One of the things I work on with my clients is looking for that North Star. What does 10, 15, 20 years from now look like? And if you don't know, have you even thought about it? Because the difference is this: a lot of times in our corporate careers, we go from job to job to job without thinking about what the longer term impact and longer term effect of that, job hopping is going to be. And why that makes a difference is the fact that if you have a career strategy, and if you're looking at what your ultimate objective is, let's say you work in finance and your ultimate objective is to be a CFO, then as you look at the next job, you should look at it as the next opportunity instead of just the job, and understand, is this opportunity going to give me the requisite, knowledge, skills, experience that's going to make me qualified not only for the next opportunity, but for the one after that. Because as I use the kind of the pyramid as a context all the time. And if you think about the top of the pyramid, maybe being the CFO in that functional area, there's a lot of people that, on plateaus underneath that pyramid. And that might be you as you go up that pyramid and you get more senior. Okay. But what got you here won't get you there. There's a book obviously entitled that, et cetera. And the way I characterize that is, what you knew yesterday is not what you're going to need to know tomorrow to be as successful as you've been, just because people are going to have different expectations of you. And your ability to kind of step into the shoes and really do a great job is very much incumbent upon your ability to understand what those parameters are. And many times we get stuck, we get frozen. And that's what a coach does, because we enhance the self-awareness. We help you build the self-confidence. The idea is to listen intently, right? As a coach, I'll pay attention to what you tell me, but I also pay attention to what you don't tell me. And I also pay attention to the body language that you were telling me it, because many times we're exuding things that we don't even know or understand, or that we intend based upon how we say something. I can tell about how enthused you are or not about your job, the way you talk about it, the way you talk about people on your team, the way you talk about certain projects, or whatever it is, or the way you even talk about your career and yourself and how you see yourself in that light. And so, as we kind of think about what your opportunities are to level up, you talk about leadership presence, you talk about emotional intelligence, you talk about your ability to network and communicate effectively. All of these things are things coaches can work with you on. And the great thing about working with a coach is that it's 100% safe and confidential environment, okay? There are a ton of folks out there, and there's hundreds of thousands of people who call themselves coaches. But, you know, I am a member of the International Coaching Federation. I've gotten accredited by the ICF, and under ICF credential standards, right, we are supposed to operate in a 100% safe and confidential environment, which means the only two people on earth are going to know what we talk about as coach and client is us, without your specific permission to potentially, you know, share that with maybe your manager or your HR partner or whomever that is if you're working inside a corporation, particularly if your company has sponsored your coaching engagement. Now, I've worked with some clients who have been sponsored, and in certain instances, the company almost wants to overstep their bounds in asking for specific types of information about that individual. You know, my belief system as a coach is, you know, I don't automatically step into that. We get some form of agreement with my, you know, the client to understand, well, what is it that you're comfortable in sharing with that team, so that we are not broaching any confidentiality rules and regulations that I adhere to as part of ICF. Okay, so that's a big differentiator for a coach as compared to some other folks that might be helping you. Okay. And so if you think about what the longer term effects are, as you think about, you know, your longer term strategy for what you want to do as an entrepreneur, what you want to do as a working professional in a corporation, nonprofit, education, whatever it is, you got to think about transformation. You got to think about how are you going to transform this thinking into action that's going to be able to, you know, allow you to hold yourself accountable over time. And again, I go back to, you know, coach being a thought partner and helping you kind of think about that, and then co-creating, you know, the design of action steps that are going to allow you to continue to grow and morph over time along the lines that we've talked about, you know, as a coach and a client. All right. So what's the difference between a coach, a mentor, a sponsor, and a counselor? I've talked a lot about what a coach is. But I know for many years, I kind of tossed around coach, mentor, you know, kind of interchangeably. And as I got accredited and, you know, did the work for about 8-9 months on, you know, going deep into my own understanding of who I am and, you know, and what it meant to truly transform into a coach. The big difference is A, the confidentiality, but B is, you know, the intent for how we engage, right? A coach client relationship is not designed to be a long-term engagement. Okay. You know, I may work with you for 3 months, 6 months, or maybe a year, but after that, you know, our relationship is pretty much done, other than maybe touch points over some time, because we've now had a solid rapport, a good relationship, and we may check in every once in a while. But the formal coaching relationship ends at some prescribed amount of time. A mentoring relationship can go on for your entire career, because as you grow and go in your career, so is your mentor. And perhaps that mentor that you knew, you know, you're a manager, just coming out of college or something, and, you know, you got a mentor who's a director. Well, one day that director is going to be an SVP, EVP, CEO, and you've got that great mentoring relationship. But mentors tend to be very directional about, you know, what it is that they're telling you. Here was my path. Here's what I did. Here's what you should do. Here's what I want you to do. And it's very directional. I go back to, you know, hundreds of people that I have mentored, because one of the reasons I became a coach was because I've always truly loved giving back, particularly to folks in our community. Just because for the most part, we come out of college or we come out of the military, we come into an environment where we don't feel like we have access to information or access to resources that are going to help us grow and get opportunity for growth inside our career. And so as I've traversed that path and became successful in my own career, I always felt it was a requirement to reach back. And so, you know, I have these conversations with folks on a regular basis. But as I recall, and I go back to, you know, in my head about all of those conversations I've had with so many people over time, I found that they were I was transmitting all the time. And if I'm transmitting, that means you've got to listen, because I'm the one that's doing all the talking and taking all the air out of the room. And I was doing very little listening during that time. And that's one of the big differences between mentor and coach. A coach is not going to be directional. Coach is going to be asking questions, absorbing information, asking you very pertinent questions to the topic that we're talking about. But the agenda is 100% driven by the client. Every coaching session, the 100% of the agenda is driven by the client. Now, in mentor relationship, yeah, when you get together, That's somewhat driven by, kind of commingled between you and the mentor. But in many instances, again, that's driven by their directional approach for how they want you to manage your career, et cetera, et cetera. Having both is, I believe, an essential tool for your career growth. Mentors are essential. Having multiple mentors are, I think, essential for every career to be successful. But I have two definitions of mentor, right? You got capital M mentor and you got lowercase m mentor. A capital M mentor is a more formal relationship, right? We get assigned a mentor. You ask somebody to be my mentor. Now, in many instances for that senior executive, they may view that as a negative request, not in a bad sense, but in terms of, now I owe this person something. If I agree to be your mentor, that means I've got to commit my time, energy, resources to actually engaging with you over some time period, and I've got to do something. Well, I'm busy. I don't necessarily have time for that in certain people's minds. And, that's not necessarily a positive experience for every single person, depending on the relationship. Okay. The lowercase m mentor, you can have countless of those because you've never asked any of them to be your mentor. But you think about how much you've learned from them just based on the types of questions you've asked, the type of engagement you have with those individuals. And without being a formal mentor, they could be, astronomically helpful in helping you figure out things and know things and learn things that you didn't know before. And so, I can tell you my own career as I traversed that path and, all the way up to, the top of General Motors. I, probably had 6 or 7 mentors that most of them were old bosses from old companies. And I asked their opinion on a lot of stuff as related to my own career growth. And I didn't ask it from asking permission. I just wanted different perspectives from people that I knew and trust and I could actually talk to and get some input for. Did I agree with them 100% of the time? Absolutely not. Many times, most of the mentors would give me advice and counsel based upon their own knowledge. And I disagreed with that direction because I wanted to go in a different direction based on the opportunity I had presented to me. But I did appreciate their input and, just kind of gave me a perspective that allowed me to kind of make the decision I made. And so, as I look back in retrospect, could I have gone left in certain instances instead of right? Absolutely. Am I regretful for any of the decisions I've made? Absolutely not. Just because I tried to make them based on, on strategic, inputs and those types of things. But there are many instances that, I wished that I had a coach of the way that I know I, engage with coaching clients now that would have allowed my decision-making to be even more strategic, even more impactful than it was. So that's, if I look back at one thing that I wish I had a lot more of in my career was that. A sponsor is kind of a mentor on steroid. That's somebody that's willing to put their name, their reputation on the line, put their hand on your shoulder and say, okay, John Jones, Sally Smith, I've got you. I'm going to recommend to leadership that you get this promotion or you get this opportunity or something that, I am willing to sign my name to because I truly believe in what your value proposition is and on behalf of this company. Not everybody's willing to do that, unfortunately. And so you've got to have really special relationship to leverage a sponsor type relationship with someone. And but I encourage you as you think about managing a career to try to find those people because they are ultimately important. One of the things that's critical about a sponsor is, their willingness to say the right things about you when you're not around. So, I tell people in my coaching relationships, other than showing up and doing a great job every day, your other major job, your other major role is managing what people say about you when you're not in the room. And that's what a sponsor can do for you. Your sponsor can take on many forms. That could be your immediate manager, your manager's manager, or, some of their peers or whomever it is. Or there could be somebody senior in your organization who you just, they took a liking to you and, they're promoting you and putting you forward. But your opportunity is to find those people and leverage them as much as you can across your career. Okay. A counselor is somebody who is, absolutely, they've gone to school, they've gotten certified, trained, and they're licensed to be a counselor because they are so critical to mental health. A counselor looks backwards, okay? Coach looks 100% forward. I'm looking at the North Star. I'm looking at 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now or longer, depending on how long you've been working. A counselor is looking 100% backwards. What's happened in your career? What's happened, or something in your life that's happened to you that it's hard to overcome. It's still affecting you today. And so we need to compartmentalize this and think about what we can do to kind of help solve that issue for you. And that's what a counselor will work on. Now, it's not to say as a coach, we can't talk about something that's happened to you in the past, But our work together as coach and client is not working on trying to solve for that. Our work together is trying to create coping mechanisms and coping strategies so that that thing that happened that's still lingering for you in the back of your head is not going to be a limiting factor. It's not going to be a limiting belief, and it's not going to hold you back from your future success. And so that's the difference between all four of those in my context as a coach. Okay. So as we keep going here and we talk about, coaching common issues that common coaching issues that I deal with on a regular basis, I think as you see some of these, they might resonate with you just because these might be conversations that you have with yourself and questions you ask yourself that you never even thought about. Okay. Culturally, I was taught to not ask for help. Culturally, I was taught to put myself last. I've had a hard time advocating for myself. I freeze speaking to senior level people. I want to overcome my obstacles and lead with confidence. I'm suffering in silence. I'm an introvert, so it's hard for me to network. I want to find my leadership voice. I shy away from difficult conversations as it relates to pay increases or performance reviews or promotions or even starting salary when I get a new job. I lack confidence, so I don't appear strong. I want a career change and don't know how to move forward. I feel stuck. I want a new role. I want a new company, new field. I want something else. Okay. So if you think about that in your context, there are so many other questions and issues that I deal with as a coach that many people just have no idea that they're even lingering up here. And so that's the benefit and the value of working with somebody who can actually have that dialogue with you and really diving into where you want to be. When you start a coaching engagement, I ask some it all starts with a free coaching consultation. Let's spend some time. Let's spend 30 minutes and let's really dive into who you are, where you are, why you're here, and what it is that you want to accomplish. And I have, a series of other questions that I ask, and it's just not a rote, kind of listed type of, set of questions because every situation is unique. But you'd be surprised how many folks just, have these things, have these misgivings that they just don't know about, and they've never really addressed them, right? They've been so successful up to a point, and these are issues and items that they just kind of knew maybe were hanging out there, or they just were afraid to ask because they don't have people in their circle that they trust enough to have these conversations with. And so that's, obviously something that, you have to address, okay? So let's change the thinking a little bit, right? As we have this dialogue today, and as we, finish up the presentation, a few slides, and then, have some Q&A, let's focus on you for a second, right? Ask yourself the question, okay? Am I happy? Am I fulfilled in my current situation, personally and professionally? Yes or no? I mean, it's binary. I'm either all the way happy or I'm not, okay? We show up in so many different ways where we show the good face, but, underneath, I, have some, I don't understand what my role is, what my responsibilities are. I don't like the job. I don't like my boss. I don't like the company. I don't like the industry, but I still go every day. How are you showing up to others around you? Do you even know, right? You come to work, you just did a 45-minute or an hour commute. You spilled your coffee on your leg. You're pissed off about it. Now you get in and now you got attitude. You don't know you have attitude, but everybody else in the office, when you get in or when you get on that first Zoom call, everybody knows that something happened just because of how you exude on that day. But you don't even know it, right? Just because it's become part of your subpsyche. It's just part of who you are. Are you able to pay attention to those things, right? So let's say you got a great job title. Let's say you are that CFO that you aspire to. But are you fully committed to that job, that role, that responsibility? Or are you just going through the motions for a paycheck? Day to day, you show up, you smile, you do your thing. But is this ultimately what you thought it was going to be? Whatever you're doing right now, is this the company that you want to work for? This great business idea that I started and I'm committed to, am I truly committed to seeing it through? What am I willing to do to actually, get this business off the ground, right? I need capital, right? Ron needs to come up with, fantastic resources through the Penn community to try to get business owners access to capital. But if you couldn't get that capital immediately until you had a revenue source and you were able to show sustained capital gain over some time, would you be willing to sell your car to do this, to bring this business into the fore, right? So what is it that's going to sustain you and make you happy? And do you even know? Okay. So let's talk about showing up as your best self, right? You've got to ask yourself the question, well, what is it that I really want? What is it that I intend to do with whatever I'm doing? But you got to think about it in the context, not only for yourself, but those other people that are the closest to you and those people that you work with on a regular basis as well. What are you willing to do? And, how are you going to show up your best self for the overall organization? Because particularly if you're a people leader, you've got to exhibit, strength. You've got to exhibit leadership. You've got to show up in ways that allows the team to move forward, even when you don't feel like it. Okay. So that comes into behaviors. What are the behaviors that I'm going to need to exhibit to be successful in where I'm at today? And then, we talked about this just briefly, right? How are you showing up every day when you show up inside this office or, on this Zoom screen as you engage with people? Perhaps you had an issue with somebody 2 meetings ago and somebody's still carrying that over and it's coming across in how you respond. You're snippy that day, or you're just not that attentive, or whatever it might be. Are you mindful of how you're showing up, from your mind, your body, and your spirit? Again, as a coach, I pay attention a lot to what you tell me, but also pay attention to what you're not telling me and how your body language is exuding too. But others are doing that subconsciously as well. Think about it from your subordinate who, because, you chewed their head off because you were pissed off about something else. How often are they going to come to you with real world problems just because they are fearful of, receiving your wrath the next time? Okay. These are things that subconsciously we sometimes exhibit, but we don't know that we're doing it. And so you've got to figure out how to, continue to work on yourself when you have these issues, if you have these roadblocks. These are issues that working with a coach can help you identify and then, come up with those coping strategies and how to move forward. So how would you know, right? So you assume that you're always in the middle of the road on every given day. You show up, you do the best job, people respect you, people revere you, and you go home that night with the same belief system. Well, how would you really know if you're moving away, right? Or you're moving left or right? Would you be able to personally assess that in your head? Are you open to hearing feedback from somebody who's telling you, you're showing up a certain way and, you should really get back on track? And if that's the case, what could you do to get back on track once you recognize up here that you veered left or right? These are questions that you should be asking yourself on a regular basis. And if you can't get those answers for yourself, working with a coach is a great way to kind of help you think about it. Let's also talk about where you're stuck, right? As successful as we are in most of the facets of our lives, I think we all have issues with something where we just can't figure it out. We don't know why we're stuck. I know I have good intentions and I know I kind of see the result that's out there. I don't know how to get from here to there. And that's, maybe something I can't figure out myself. Do I know the problem I'm trying to fix? I know it's not working. I don't know exactly what the problem is. I can't pinpoint it exactly, but I know I got to fix something so that whatever I'm working on or whatever the team's working on or whatever the company's working on can come out successfully on the back end. But, do you know what that is? Have you asked yourself those questions, or do you even know what questions to ask? You got to ask yourself, how often is this an issue? Is this a constant pattern? This is, something that's happening every day? Or does it happen, once a quarter or something, so it's not as significant as, maybe some other issues? But then how's it affecting you personally, okay? How's it affecting you at the job? How's it affecting your team and how you show up and engage with people? How's it affecting you as a mom, dad, husband, wife, son, daughter? Best friend, whomever it is, right? Are you aware of kind of that experience that people have when they engage with you? Working with a coach can kind of, help you think about some of those things, all right? Before you can be a great leader for anybody out there, the first thing you got to do is work on you, okay? We don't think about it that way. Well, a lot of times we're thinking about that, hey, I got to be a great leader. I got promoted into being a people leader. I've got 15 or 1,000 people working for me, and they all are expecting something out of me now. Okay, so I got to show up as a strong leader, and I got to exude, these types of behaviors. I got to have this confidence. I got to do all these things. Meanwhile, I am suffering in silence, let's use that term again, beneath. Okay, I'm stressed all the time. I'm not in a good mood. I don't like being here on a daily basis, and whether you know it or not, people pick that up on a regular basis. They're just not telling you that. And so if you think about, the emotional side of you and how you're showing up, not as your best self, then the behaviors that you don't want to come out can potentially be creeping out and having negative effects on your team. because you start pointing fingers and how come you didn't do this instead of how come the team didn't, really work together to drive this outcome. You start blaming people, you start humiliating people subconsciously, and you never expected or intended to do it, but it's happening. All right. So if you're able to kind of step back and focus on the bigger picture and look at this holistically and more broadly, which is what a coach is working on, right? Let's think about the larger picture. Let's think about the North Star. What are we actually trying to accomplish? And then let's create the action steps for how we're going to drive that. And then when, you have an issue, how are you going to address that? So not stopping, continue to move it forward, but how are we going to stop, deal with the issue, deal with the person, deal with whatever it is, the budget or something that's going to keep those counterproductive behaviors in check that we talked about, okay? The International Coaching Federation now has more than 55,000 coaches. Now, there's a ton of different coaching organizations that have accreditations, et cetera. ICF is kind of the most predominant and most highly respected. To be accredited by the International Coaching Federation is a pretty lengthy process. To even get there's 3 different levels. You got associate certified coach, ACC, a professional certified coach, PCC, and then a master certified coach, MCC. To even get accredited as an associate certified coach, you've had to go through at least 60 hours of training at a qualified school or institution, and then you've had to have shown, you've got to have a log of at least 100 coaching hours of actual clients. You provide their contact information so that when they spot check, they check and see, okay, you said you coached Sally Jones from this time to this time. We're going to check with Sally Jones to see if you're telling the truth. But what's even more stringent than that is that you've got to submit 2 recordings. You got to get a couple of coaching clients to agree to record the session. And then master coaches grade your paper on how well you are, exhibiting, adherence to the ICF, standards for coaching. It's a pretty daunting process, actually. And not everybody comes out rosy on the other side, and you have to, try that multiple times. So just to even get the basic credential takes a lot of time. And so if you're dealing with somebody who's got an ICF credential, they're a pretty good coach. So 100 hours as an ACC, 500 hours as a PCC, and to be a master coach, you've had to coach for 2,500 hours. I can tell you it takes many years to get 2,500 hours of coaching anybody. Because you think about it, coaching engagement normally is about a 1-hour session, okay? And even if you're committed to coaching with somebody for an engagement, which is maybe 6 months long, you may meet with that person 12 to 14 times. That's 12 to 14 hours over the 6 months. We're talking about 2,500 hours of coaching for a master coach. And so those are the people that are grading the recordings for folks who are trying to get this credential. So just think about that if you are considering a coach. Again, there are plenty of people who call themselves coach, but, as you think about credentialing and accreditation, those that have gone through this process through ICF have actually gone through some things and are pretty good coaches on the back end. Okay.
Man, I'm like speechless almost. I think everybody, I can't see everybody on the call, but I think everybody here needs a coach. I didn't know how deep it went into coaching though, David. So this is like really, 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 really good for a lot of us. And I know we need to replay this over and over because I think everybody in the whole United States, they're wealthy to coach right now.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Right.
So the U.S. Department of Labor has come up with a professional competency model across functions, okay? This is just an example for one of engineering. And as you see there are a number of levels of competencies, right? And using that pyramid as kind of the example, out of their 5 tiers of competencies, 2 of them are interpersonal, okay? So if you think about it, right, we go to college, right? We learn, we take whatever major we've taken, et cetera. And then we go out to the brave new world and we go start a career, or we start a new business, or we do whatever that is, okay? Outside of our technical acumen, let's say, we're an engineer like here, and you're a mechie, you're a mechanical engineer, and you took certain classes and exhibited expertise in certain areas. To be successful as a mechanical engineer working inside a tech company, there are certain things you have to do, okay, to be successful. And that's just brass tacks. That's the basics, okay? But what the Department of Labor is saying is, outside of the professional workplace competency, technical, competencies across an industry, there are, and academic competencies that you've already exhibited, there are personal competencies that are requirements, right? Interpersonal skills, integrity, professionalism, initiative, adaptability and flexibility, dependability and reliability, lifelong learning. That's the tier one. That's the basic tier, okay? Think about how many of those topics were taught to you in college. How many of those were taught to you in high school? Your parents, gave you the basis of that, obviously. But if you think about it as a competency that is required for success in a career field, how much of that was taught to you in college? Not everyone, et cetera, right? So, and if you think about that from a workplace competencies level, right? Teamwork, client and shareholder focus, planning and organizing, creative thinking, seeking, developing opportunities, working with tools and technology, scheduling and coordinating, checking, examining, and recording, business fundamentals. Again, how much of that was taught to you in college? And then as you've risen up in your career and you become a manager, senior manager, director, those types of things, and now you're leading teams of people, okay? Being a great functional person probably got you those first 2, 3, 4 promotions in your career, okay? But as you get up that pyramid up to these plateaus, and you're trying to step into the senior executive role, vice president, senior vice president, executive vice president, right? What you knew yesterday is not what you're going to need to know tomorrow to do this, because now you're a different type of leader. You've really got to learn leadership. You've really got to develop your business acumen. You've got to do things that your functional expertise can no longer, get you over on. And again, these things weren't taught to you in college. So, and you don't go to school for these things when you're working inside an organization. So where are you learning them from? Okay. These are things that you definitely need to work on so that you're turning this on in a way that people start, when they're grading your papers and talking about you when you're not in the room, these are things that they're talking about as it relates to you. All those areas that are encapsulated in yellow, right, for the interpersonal competency, these are areas that if you have shortcomings in your own mind that you can work on with a coach. And you can identify these as shortcomings, and we can work together to set meta goals around it. Okay, here's the issue. Here's one of the goals that I want to kind of work on through a coaching engagement. And by the end of it, when I create an individual development plan that's going to be sustaining for me over the rest of my career, right? These are some of the items that, I know I'm lacking, and we can work on these things together. So that's what that's about, all right? This is an article that came out a couple of years ago in Fast Company magazine, and this relates to people of color, okay? And the article, is just talking about, what Black professionals say they need most to succeed at work. I'm not going to read through the article, but what I've highlighted over the right side is this: 40% of Black professionals believe that mentorship and career opportunities, coaching opportunities, will help lead a more equitable workplace culture, yet many professionals don't currently have access to these programs, okay? Black professionals who don't currently have mentors or career coaches cited the lack of trust in people inside the organization at 49%, and being uncomfortable asking for help as key barriers at 39%. So what's that saying all in essence is that when we don't get access to resources that others do, it doesn't allow us to kind of hit the ground running and be as successful as other folks. And when we are stuck in that, and we actually don't have the knowledge, skills, and we have the ability, we don't have the knowledge and necessarily trained skills to actually move forward outside of those other competencies, right? We're talking about the personal competencies now. That forces us to kind of stay where we are. We're stagnant, and that's where we get frustrated. And so, I've done a ton of work on DEI in my career as a communications executive, et cetera, et cetera. And as I've seen about what DEI initiatives are all about, it really focuses a lot on those people that we're going to hire to bring into the organization. We're really committed to increasing diversity inside the organization. And then there's the thousands of people who work inside the company who feel like they're forgotten, because what resources are coming to me to help me grow, to help me be prepared for that next promotion. I've been sitting in the same job for 5 years, and I've seen everybody around me go up, and I'm still sitting here. But why? Is it because I'm not capable? I'm not qualified? No, absolutely I am. I just don't necessarily know how to play the game the way that others do. And so, having a coach can be very helpful and instrumental in that. This is just an abstract from a thesis that was written by Dr. Ariel Finch Bernstein at Columbia University. And it talks about race matters in coaching, okay? He sampled 129 coaches and asked them basically, their willingness to have difficult conversations with Black clients. And not surprising, white coaches were less than eager to have diversity-related conversations with a person of color for fear of being racist, okay? So now, if you're a professional working inside an organization and you've got a multicultural issue that you're facing with certain organizations or individuals inside the organization, and it's holding you back, and you get assigned a coach who doesn't necessarily come from your background, how willing are you really to have that dialogue with that person? It can directly impact the coaching engagement based upon who is assigned or who you've chosen as a coach. That's why one of the things, when I came into coaching, I wanted to provide as much choice as people can have if you want to choose somebody who really resonates with your background and where you've come from, et cetera, et cetera. This study, obviously in this longer thesis, says everything along those lines that it just really indicates that having choice makes all the difference in the world for people of color. Harvard University, Linda Hill, she is, in the Harvard Business School. She is a very well-known professor there, chair of the Leadership Initiative. She's, written a ton of articles, et cetera, et cetera. And going back to thinking about leadership, okay? We talked about, the propensity for us to kind of reach out and focus on the team first, because that's our natural need to do that as a leader. Well, going back to some of the things that we talked about before, her basic premise is you can't be an effective leader until you manage yourself first. Okay, we've already covered that a little bit. But then surprisingly, why I put this slide in here is that you also have to manage your network. And the reason you got to manage your network is because you're going to tap into that network for your own knowledge base, for your ability to understand and connect dots, so that you can bring that knowledge and information in starting to manage your team. Because you're not going to do anything in a vacuum. A leader standing there by him or herself, having no engagement with anybody else, is really not a leader. That's a dictator, okay? Because as a leader, you've got to be able to take in information in a 360-degree sphere of influence, which means people that work for you are going to train you and teach you about stuff that you don't even know about. If you think about any CEO of any company, it is impossible, I don't care the size of the company, to know everything about everything that's going on inside that business. It's just too much. One human being can't process that. Okay, that's why they have great people working for them. And the whole idea of leadership is to get some really good people who are a lot better than I am and get out of their way and let them go be great. And just process the information that they flow to me, and then we can all be successful together. All right, that's the whole premise of leadership through my lens. All right, so I talked actually longer than I intended. We have about 10 minutes left. I would love to open up the floor for questions.
Hi. I didn't have a direct question first. I just want to say thank you. One, because I think there's a lot of these things that, a lot of us probably know, we know, right? Like you think about it, but you need this constant reminder. And I think that's one of the reasons like having a coach is so critical. So nonetheless, that was my first thing, is just to say thank you, and really highlighting that last slide about managing yourself first. I mean, I think myself, it's been a challenge at times. And so it's a great reminder. So appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Any other thoughts, questions?
This is Candace here. Olmaeo, that means how much? I'll take 4. This was great. This was great. More people needed to tune in for this. I agree with what Sonia and Rodney are saying. This is right on point and right on time. I coach, and right now I'm working with a client who's been with Nestle USA Latin America for 10 years, and they brought her to America during the pandemic. And man, what an interesting time for her to try to assimilate into that culture. And she said some of the same things that I've said, and it looks like from your statistics and your slideshow, other people have said. And so this is definitely a conversation that needs to happen. Many people have that term diversity and inclusion, but they're not necessarily including or diversifying. People are there, but they're not getting the support that they need in order to, as you said, excel, or to feel as though they're excelling in part of company culture. So Absolutely. Thank you so much. I see, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna pass your information along if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And I also want to open the door to say I'd love to sit with you and see how we could potentially help one another, because there's a list of people that I just can't help because there's only one of me. And I think you would be a great resource for them.
I'd love to, and I'd love to pass on the same opportunity and reciprocity. Absolutely.
Kamsahamnida. That's thank you to the highest level.
She's hit me with that. I'm still learning English right now. What's going on?
No, Dave, this is excellent, man. I think everybody needs this. Like I said, it kind of opened my eyes up, you know, based off your presentation and what you presented today. I'm like, wow, you know, sometimes I don't think, you know, most of us realize that we really need a coach. You know, I think that's always a problem too. You don't realize that you need something until you see something like this, or you've been, you know, you've shared the information with us to make us understand that, hey, this is warranted. We need a coach. Mm-hmm. So, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
But one thing to just think about, right? Obviously, coaching costs money. Okay, if you work for an organization, if you work for an organization, you know, you're perfectly within your rights to ask that organization to sponsor you for coaching. Okay, as professional development. All right, just because if they truly are invested in your growth, you know, there are companies that have in-house coaches. For many, many years, coaching was either reserved for the senior echelon of the organization, or they were assigned to people who were having challenges, right? Because it was, if they kind of failed the coaching, it was a justification of firing, all right? But that whole world has transformed. Now, there are many companies who invest heavily, you know, down to a certain level, and allowing their employees to really get access to coaching. You should find out, you know, if you're working for a company, you know, where they are, you know, along that continuum, and ask to, you know, maybe get that investment in you. However, if you, you know, perhaps don't get that sponsorship, think about the investment in yourself as well. Okay. You know, we'll buy that new car, we'll take that trip to Jamaica and all those things and have a good time. But if I truly believe I'm stuck in an area, when's the last time I really thought about investing in me first? Okay. And quite honestly, if I am not the right coach for you, you know, we can have that conversation. You know, I'm really truly more about helping folks than the you know, the revenue side of this, you know, because outside of this company, I actually founded a company with some partners called Four Forces Executive Group. And when you go to that page, it's FOUR Forces, EG.com. And you look at the makeup of that, you know, the bench of our coaches, they look all like you and me, okay? We got more than 30 of us in that group. And we've got plenty of folks we haven't even tapped in yet to, you know, as coaches. All of us are ICF certified and, you know, really are trying to create critical mass on trying to help people get out of their own way sometimes. And in many instances, I mean, even though I'm a coach, I have coaches to help me. I've got my own coaches. You know, I've got a coach who coaches me, okay? Just because I feel I need that help and support and guidance sometimes when I feel stuck in certain instances. So it's a self-recognition of kind of where I am right now. Once you start having that, it develops this clarity for other things. And I believe that, you know, it's helpful for you for your longer term impact. So thank you again for your time tonight. I've really enjoyed it. And you've got all my info. I'd ask you to subscribe, right? Go to my LinkedIn page. I've got a weekly newsletter called Career Growth Catalyst. It's free information. You know, the one I think I have out now, they come out every Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern. It's all about using your network to find that next job, etc. So the relevant topics for career growth, you know, I share them with young professionals or people who are stuck, you know, those types of things. It's a wide range of topics every week, but you know, anything that I can do to be helpful, just using 35 years of experience that I've had, that's the phase of my life right now that I'm in. And so that's kind of what I do all day, every day.
Well, David, we definitely want to thank you, man, for your presentation, your knowledge, you know, your leadership skills, also your coaching skills. As I said, I think it's an eye-opener for a lot of us, and it's a whole lot of other business that need this type of help. So we will champion and push, you know, others to try to get coaches and come to you and use your network of coaches But, you know, it's all about coming together. It's all about, you know, bringing relationships together and utilizing each other so we can continue to scale and grow our business. And also, you know, to our lifestyles or our lives in a better situation than where we are today.
Absolutely.
So again, brother, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Everybody have a blessed night.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.